Here's a weird fact about restaurants. The best ones aren't measured by the size of the plate. They're measured by the size of the memory you walk out with. And nobody proved that better this year than the final season of a little show called The Bear. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, great, another recap channel, stick with me. Because I'm not here to just tell you what happened. I'm here to tell you why Season 5 quietly pulled off one of the smartest structural tricks in modern television, and why one character, a guy who used to be the angriest person in the building, ended up being the actual soul of the whole show. Let's get into IT to S. Oh, here's the setup. Season 5 of The Bear does something almost nobody expected. It doesn't sprawl. It doesn't jump around Chicago for 8 episodes, chasing 5 different subplots. It picks one single dinner service, and it just stays there. Table counts, ticket times, ingredient counts. The show tracks all of it, almost like a stopwatch running under the whole season. And critics noticed this immediately. Variety pointed out that Season 5 strips away almost everything that weighed the show down in Seasons 3 and 4. No flashy guest stars. No hour-long detours. Just the kitchen, the dining room, and the clock. That's a bold move for a final season. Most shows won't go bigger at the end. The Bear went smaller. And it worked because smaller meant sharper. Every single character got a moment because there was nowhere else for the camera to look. Sydney swapped in a last-minute Coca-Cola short rib dish. Tina debuted a brand-new Brussels sprout plate she'd clearly been perfecting for weeks. Carmy did his usual mid-crisis culinary improvising. Gary the sommelier pulled an insanely specific wine pairing out of nowhere. Even Neil, who spent most of the show as comic relief, turned into a genuinely composed, personable server. But the person carrying the whole night on his back? Richie. Let's talk about the math problem Richie was actually solving, because it's more interesting than it sounds. The restaurant is short on food, short on time, short on staff. Portions are getting cut, sometimes in half, mid-service. And meanwhile, guests are paying around $190 a head to sit in that dining room. That's not a small gap to close. That's the kind of gap that ends restaurants. One bad review from a food critic on a night like that, and it's over. So what does Richie do? He refuses to cancel a single reservation. Not one. Instead, he starts treating the shortage like a puzzle instead of a disaster. He remembers personal details about nearly every guest in the room. He buys people dessert out of his own pocket. He orchestrates little surprise moments, a kitchen tour here, a bonus dish there. And at one point, with almost nothing left to give, he throws together an impromptu garden party in the middle of service. Basically, when the food ran out, Richie started serving something else. Attention, timing, presence. And according to the show, that turned out to be worth just as much as a perfectly plated entree. Multiple reviewers actually singled this out. HuffPost team called Richie's arc one of the clearest examples of personal growth on television, going from, quote, an arrogant, selfish person who couldn't care less about being a team player, to someone acting like the captain of the tightest ship in the industry. That's not a small transformation. That's a 5-season character arc paying off in real time, under pressure, on the worst possible night to test it. Now here's the part one actually find fascinating from a writing perspective. Richie's storyline this season works as a direct mirror to Carmy's. Carmy spent 5 seasons pushing everyone around him to chase perfection, sometimes at the cost of the people in the room. Richie starts this season needing to be pushed in the exact opposite direction. He has to be convinced to want more than what the beef used to be. But by the finale, something interesting happens. Richie doesn't lose the family-first instincts that made him who he was. He just adds ambition on top of them. He's still the guy who knows your name and your order. He's just also now the guy pulling off logistical miracles under a ticking clock. Meanwhile, Carmy is basically a ghost in his own kitchen this season, according to Variety's review, present but already halfway out the door emotionally. 2 characters, moving in opposite directions, crossing paths in the same 8 episodes. That's tight writing. That's not accidental. And it lines up with something IndieWire pointed out in their finale breakdown. They said this season works specifically because its choices are rooted in character over plot. The stakes aren't really about a Michelin star. They're about whether these people can hold onto each other while everything around them falls apart. That'll be why the time the series ends, Nearly everybody gets a real, earned conclusion. Tina becomes Sydney's chef de cuisine after a season built entirely around her stepping up. Marcus finally gets recognition as an award-winning pastry chef. And Richie, the guy who once yelled at customers over a sandwich window, ends up flying internationally to attend a hospitality seminar in Japan. First flight of his life. Critics are split on whether the finale ties things up a little too neatly. IndieWire actually used a great line for it, comparing the ending to Italian beef drowning in too much cheese sauce. Almost too much sweetness in one sitting. But even critics who felt that way agreed the emotional foundation was earned. Rotten Tomatoes critic consensus lands the season in the high 80s, with reviewers repeatedly using words like satisfying, warm, and, in more than one review, the best the show has been in years. And that's really the through line here. The Bear was never actually a show about food. Food was just the language it used to talk about something else. Family, growth, what people are willing to give each other when there's nothing left on the shelf. Season 5 proved that by shrinking the entire story down to one night, one dining room, one impossible shift, and somehow that made the ending feel bigger, not smaller. So here's my actual takeaway. The best finales don't try to top themselves in scale. They try to prove what the show was always about one more time, under the worst possible conditions. The Bear did that by putting its most transformed character front and center, and letting him carry an entire restaurant on charm, memory, and sheer refusal to give up on a single table. If you've made it this far, you clearly care about this show as much as I do. Drop your ranking of the 5 seasons in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where people land on this one. And if you want more breakdowns like this, you know what to do. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.